Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, welcome back. Today we're talking about one of the most frequently asked questions I get. And I get this question every single day of my life, okay? If you're new here, welcome. Today we're talking about traditional TSP or Roth TSP. Where should you be putting your money? Because at retirement, it's gonna be a big deal depending on what you picked. It's gonna affect a lot of things down the road, which we're going to talk about today. So welcome, buckle in. We're going to have a great time. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Dallin Hawes. I'm a financial planner who serves federal employees specifically every single day. So let's dive right in and let's lay the foundation before we go into any nitty gritty. You have to understand the main differences between the Roth TSP and the traditional TSP to make sure we're on the same page here. First and foremost, when you save money into the traditional TSP, which most of you, that's probably where you're saving, unless you've already changed this, which if you have, great. But the traditional TSP, when you put money in, you get a tax deduction. For example, if your salary is $100,000 and you put $10,000 into the traditional TSP, you're going to be taxed as if you only made $90,000. That's how it works. You get a tax deduction, okay? The Roth is different, where if you make 100 grand and you put 10 grand into the Roth, you're gonna be taxed as if you made the full $100,000. It doesn't affect your taxes now. It does zero for you now. However, this is the big difference between the traditional and the Roth. The Roth, let's say you put that 10 grand in, let's say it grows to 20, 30, 40,000 over the course of your career. In retirement, that 10,000 is now worth 40. That entire $40,000 can be taken out tax-free without any tax ramifications at all in retirement, which is wonderful, right? The traditional TSP is the opposite. You got the tax break when you put the money in. However, when that $10,000 now grows to 40 and you're in retirement, what happens when you take that 40,000 out? Well, from the traditional TSP, that entire $40,000 is taxable income. That's how it works. With the Roth, you get the benefit later. With the traditional, you get it now. So the big question is, which one should you do? Which one actually makes sense over time? And to be honest, it depends. And we're going to talk about what it depends on. There is no perfect cookie cutter solution. But if I had to make one, if I had to throw some numbers at this, I would say probably 70% of the time, Roth is going to be better. And we'll talk through why I'm saying that. But if you just want a cookie cutter answer, most of the time, more than 50%, certainly more than 50, probably about 70% of the time, when I look at people's situations, I start looking at numbers and running scenarios, 70% of the time, the Roth puts more money in their pocket over the course of their lifetime, okay, and saves them more taxes over time. But again, we'll talk about why that is. So really, this is what it comes down to. This is what it comes down to. Are you going to be in a higher tax bracket now or later in retirement, okay? Because let's say right now, you're in the 22% tax bracket, and in retirement, you're gonna be in the 12% tax bracket. Well, when do you wanna pay taxes? When you're paying 22% or 12? Well, you certainly wanna be paying when it's 12, when it's just a lower tax rate, okay? So the goal is for you to find the perfect answer for you, if you really wanna dive into the numbers, is you have to know what you're making now, which you probably know that, but you also have to know roughly what you're gonna make in retirement, okay? Which that's the harder thing to know. Okay, that's certainly the harder thing to know, but there's some rules of thumb. If you are early in your career, the Roth is going to make sense 9 out of 10 times. First of all, your salary is going to increase quite a bit over your career. Your earnings is relatively low compared to what it's going to be. Okay, so, and once you get the money in the Roth, you're going to, if you're young, you've got so much time to let that compound and grow completely tax-free. Completely tax-free. So if you're young, early in your career, it's almost a no-brainer. And even into the middle of your career, it is often a no-brainer depending on the situation. Again, there's always exceptions, but most people early to mid-career should be doing Roth. Now, you don't have to. There's no one forcing you to. You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm just saying over the course of your career and your retirement, you're going to thank yourself over and over and over again if you make the change now. Okay, you make the change now, you'll forget about it, and in retirement, you're like, oh yeah, I've got this whole hunk of change that's completely tax-free. That's amazing. That is amazing, okay? Now, for those that it gets a little more complicated is when you're getting to the later parts of your career. Because first, your salaries, your pay is going to be on the higher end based on where you're going to be out in the rest of your career. It's going to be relatively high, okay? And then you probably have a better idea of what your income is in retirement. So you could start doing some comparisons. Like, look, okay, right now I make 100 grand. What am I going to make in retirement? What is my pension going to be? What's my social security going to be? You're going to have to look at those income sources if you really want to really get a great answer for you. Now, if you did Roth through the end, you'd probably still get the most out of it. You'd probably still save a bunch of taxes. And the reason is tax rates are probably going up. Well, if I was a betting man, I'd say 99% chance over the next 10 years, taxes are going to go up by a good margin. In 2026, they're scheduled to go up even if Congress does nothing. Okay. And I assume taxes are going to go up in the future even more because guess what? We have a huge national debt. There's a lot of things, a lot of programs that are going to need more funding, where is it going to come from? It's got to come from taxes. So if I was a betting man, taxes are going up. And this is completely putting politics aside. My guess as a finance person is taxes are going up. So if tax rates are going to go up, when do we want to pay taxes? Now or later? Well, ideally now, right? When tax rates are relatively low, so that later in retirement, when tax rates are high, you say, look, I've got a bunch of money in the Roth. I don't care about that high taxes because all my money coming out of the Roth TSP, that's tax-free money, baby. That's tax-free, okay? So again, I'm just talking through some of the pros and cons, the things to think about. You want to look at your own numbers. If you run your own numbers and say, hey, look, right now I make 100 grand, but in retirement, I'm only going to make 50. Okay, well then maybe do the traditional, right? Maybe do the traditional. I don't know. You have to look at your own numbers. Now, if you make 100 grand now and in retirement, you're only scheduled to make 50, I would ask, are you really going to retire and be okay with only 50 grand if you're used to 100 grand worth of income, right? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. In my experience, most people assume they're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, which when I actually run the numbers, it's rare. Does it happen? Yeah, it certainly does sometimes. But for most people, especially federal employees with a strong pension, social security, through a savings plan, it's often that they're about in the same income level that they were before, which is a great thing. But for taxes, that means you're probably going to be about the same. And if tax rates are going up, well, the Roth would make sense at that time. Now, the times where the traditional is probably going to make sense is for you really, really high earners where you just want the tax break now. Okay. Or maybe there's certainly certain tax credits and things that you want to make sure you qualify for, and that would keep your AGI and your taxable income low enough to qualify for those, right? Maybe if you have a tax preparer, talk to them and say, hey, am I close to any tax credits or anything? If putting more into the traditional, would that get me there, right? Those are some of the conversations you want to have to tailor this for you. But again, these are just the overarching principles to think about. If you're early to mid-career, the Roth is going to make sense a ton of times. As you're in your late career, there's going to be more question marks. It doesn't always make sense. Again, if you did do Roth yet, you'd probably still absolutely love it, right? But there are a few question marks on if it's worth it when you're making as much as you are. Okay, and then you want to really dial it in for you and say, okay, what is my income going to be in retirement? So these are the things to think about. Again, if I was you, if you want to find the right answer for you, look at the numbers, right? And do an educated guess. Maybe you think taxes aren't going to go up. If that's the case for you, great. Maybe do traditional, right? But if you're like me and you think taxes are going to go up, consider Roth. So those are the things to think about. I'm sure there's other things. There's always some exceptions and things to think about. But those are some of the big ones, okay? I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions on this or anything else, there's a link below to submit those to us, and we base our future content on those questions that we get. I hope that's helpful. Have an incredible rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time.